Welcome back to the Quantum Health Connection podcast. My name is Heather Crimson, and this is my wonderful co-host, Vanessa Baldwin. We're so glad you're joining us this week. This week, we have a special episode. This is a follow-up to last week's episode with Dr. Stephen Hussey, who's a chiropractor and a functional medicine coach, and who's the author of 3 books and an international speaker. And so he shared with us all about the quantum aspects of pain. He did a lot of research. Oh my gosh, Vanessa, the end notes of his book was like 50, 60, 70, I don't know, 70 pages. He read so much. And so he's basically building on the foundation of all the things he learned with his first several books, right? In the quantum aspects of heart function, which I highly recommend you guys read. But what we wanted to do this week in this show is to do sort of an overview of what he shared, because it was a lot of really good information. But if it's new to you, we want to kind of say it again in our own language and kind of break it down. And also, though, we didn't get into last week's show. We didn't feel like we got to, because there was so much amazing stuff to talk to him about. We didn't really have enough time to cover all the ways that you can like implement simple lifestyle strategies to ameliorate your pain, to lessen your level of pain. So this is such a, ubiquitous epidemic. We just want to bring this information to the world and help you understand what pain is about and then what you can do about it.
Yeah, I'm so excited to do this with you and break this down a little bit for our listeners because honestly, I think his book is great and it's awesome. Everybody should go read it. And we can also just share here a little bit of those points that can really support you and you supporting your chronic pain. And as somebody who's dealt with chronic pain at a very severe level and seeing how these practices and principles have made such an impact on me, it is something that's near and dear to my heart that I like to share a lot about. And I think sharing that personal story is really, really important. So yeah, I think it's really important that we share this information with the world. And people don't think like quantum biology or circadian health is going to impact their pain levels. But yeah, 1,000,000%, because pain, in my opinion, it's a lot of things, but one of the things that it definitely is a sign of low voltage, low cellular energy in the body. And that is all the things that we're teaching here on this podcast, is all about improving your cellular energy and your cellular voltage, and then thus improving your quantum coherence and your quantum like intercellular communication, right? So your cells can actually be talking to each other and sending the right signals and messages to each other and working more coherently, right? So that was like the big gist of his book that I got from, listening to him and reading the book, was that basically that, pain and inflammation is due to low voltage. We don't have enough electrons. We don't have enough energy over inflammation. And we need more energy to get rid of the pain or source, right? And I always remind people, and I know we've said this before in the podcast, that only 1/3 of our energy should really come from food, and the other 2/3 should come from sunlight and earthing, which will improve our mitochondrial health, which expands our exclusion zone water, which helps us have more subcellular melatonin, right? We're going to get into all those things, so and then the other thing I got is that really it's that incoherence in the body, right? That's the main reason why we have pain. There's some sort of incoherent signaling issue going on there. And we're going to go over the factors that cause that incoherent signaling. And that we are really the only people who can, humans, really, because we have this prefrontal cortex, right? That gives us this unique ability to worry about pain. That's how we wire the pain in the brain. And that is unique to us. And really, of course, when we have pain, that's our initial reaction, is to worry about it, right? Like we're like, oh my God, I want this pain to go away. How is it going to affect my life? Like for me, I can remember back when I got the diagnosis of interstitial cystitis, which was really scary. And that was all the way back in 2019. And I was like, you can't not help but think, oh my God, I'm going to deal with this pain for the rest of my life. This affects what they kind of go on to the food aspect, right? Or medications that you could take, but it's like, okay, I have to alter my diet forever. I'm going to have to, deal with pain for the rest of my life. That's kind of how they leave you. So a lot of times in the medical community, when you go to seek allopathic medicine, it's kind of like, we're going to manage that pain. You're going to deal with it forever kind of thing. It's really scary. It's hard not to worry about that. But the strategies that we're going to teach you will help you rewire your brain so you're squelching that worry, that fear, and then you're also gaining more energy so you can get rid of the inflammation.
Yeah, this is a big topic. I mean, thank you so much for that wonderful overview and recap. Vanessa. And I think it's also a political thing because there's a lot of money to be made in the pharmaceutical industries by keeping people disempowered and stuck in pain and making them feel like victims and that there's really nothing they can do to get to the root of the pain. It usually will like
Mm,
if there's back pain or whatever, it's like, okay, now we're going to do surgery. Most of the time that just leads to more problems and more
okay.
pain. And yes, maybe sometimes it's really effective, but most of the people I've worked with over the many, many years, it just leads to more problems and more surgeries. So that's not good. And so, like Dr. Hussey talked about, is pain medication is basically just numbing you and disconnecting you from your body. And it's also helping to manage your negative thoughts and your negative headspace better. That's not helpful though, because it's basically just a temporary pause on the pain. It's not actually getting there's nothing significant changing, right? It's not actually getting to the root of the problem. And so we don't want people to be dependent on a centralized medical model where you have to go and you're sort of like, dependent on the system and you don't feel empowered. You don't know what to do to help your body heal itself and to decrease that level of pain. The other thing that I think was super fascinating that he said is that, and I think I've heard this before, but he really made it super clear and easy to understand is that the pain is actually created in the brain. In other words, the brain is the one that registers like, oh, this is bad. Now I'm going to send a pain signal back to like, for example, if you hurt yourself, you got your finger smashed or whatever. Now it's sending the signal back. And that's when the pain actually occurs. So that's super fascinating, right? So the brain is an integral part of this process. And we can do a lot with how we are thinking about pain. And also, I just want to mention that and I love that Dr. Hussey addresses in the book about trauma and PTSD and how that interweaves like the cognitive aspect of pain and then how that's tied to the emotional center of your brain. So the meaning we make of pain, how we perceive the pain, then how that how that affects our emotional response, those two get coupled together. So, right, this is bad. I should not have pain. I don't know what to do. It feels so bad. It's awful. Then you have the visceral felt sense of the emotional distress in your body with the actual brain signal of the pain at the site. Now you have a whole triad, right, of things, the emotional, the cognitive, and then the actual what's happening in your body at the site at which the pain signals are sent. They all get sort of coupled together, or whatever that word is, married together, right? And then you're dealing with something that makes chronic pain. Because that's the issue is how do you untether all of that, if you will, so that you can start to get to the root of the problem. So Vanessa, where's the best place to start with this?
Yeah. Well, before I get to the best place to start, I want to just say one thing about what you said because amazing. I loved everything you just said. And it's so interesting, right? Because back when I was trying to rewire my brain to get rid of chronic pain before I was doing quantum and circadian practices, one of the things I would use to try was Curable, which is an app. I don't know if you've ever heard of it before, but it's like they kind of teaching you how to rewire your brain and pain signal, and they're teaching you that about how pain is made in the brain kind of thing. And they would share some kind of experiences and stories about that, like proving that pain is made in the brain, which I thought was so interesting. And some of them was like people will like get scans like on their back for like say like disc degeneration, right? And some people will have pain, and have disc degeneration. And some people have pain and no degeneration. And some people will have disc degeneration and zero pain. So it's like, it's not necessarily like the degeneration that's causing the pain. It's actually the person's experience with that pain, which makes sense. That fear, that worry, all that is creating the pain, right? And there's also like, was a great example that I'll never forget was an example of somebody who one time they were out working and they were wearing like a boot and they stepped on a rusty nail and they were like, oh my God, I'm in so much pain, right? But then when they actually took the boot off, the pain, the nail was in between the toes. So it actually didn't even penetrate the body. So the brain was causing the pain. Like the thought of that happened to you was actually causing the pain. And I just find that so interesting. And then I can't not help think about all the people that I've been in a lot of groups, unfortunately, with, that have interstitial cystitis and things like that. And a lot of people do go to the surgery that was recommended to me as well to remove their bladder. And guess what? Just like the phantom limb, they have the phantom bladder pain that never really
They
goes
actually take
away.
out their whole bladder.
Yes, it's a common surgery actually for people with interstitial cystitis. So they don't, because they're trying to remove the source of the pain. But the thing is, the bladder is not the issue, right? Necessary, or any organ, right? It's not the organ's fault. It's a greater dysfunction in the entire body, right? There's a greater reason that we have to obviously dig a lot deeper with. That's like even with sometimes, people think, oh, they fix their, I had also had chronic pain. I've dealt with a lot of chronic pain, probably because I've had the ability and fear to worry about pain is great in my body, right? I also dealt with chronic pain in my neck for like 2 years. I had three herniated discs there, which never bother me now. They're completely healed. And I went to some physical therapy for it, and I went to two different surgeons about having surgery, and the fear and the worry about having surgery stopped me from even doing that, which I'm so glad I never did. But a lot of people do those surgeries and still have pain too. So the point is that surgery is never a guarantee that you're gonna feel better, and also that you're never going to necessarily, obviously not getting to the root with that either, right? And band-aiding it with other things is the worst. I was also prescribed SSRIs for pain as well, like that I never wound up taking. But like, how is that really solving the issue? Because it's not like it's just going to be a band-aid. So yeah, it's all very interesting. So go ahead.
SSRIs are really, I think, getting into that emotional aspect of it, right? And to kind of maybe a little bit of a buffer for the cognitive, but they're definitely just a
Yeah.
band-aid, right? And
Right.
so it's true what you're speaking to is like the perception, the meaning we make, the thoughts, and then that coupled with the emotional experience is really, I think, a large part of the whole pain process. Because like you said, the guy with the nail in his boot or whatever, and then the example that Dr. Hussey gave about the soldiers getting injured, and I don't remember if it was World War I or two, but the ones coming back that looked really badly mutilated, they were so relieved that that meant that they could get out of the war and go home that they were like, oh, my pain's not that bad. And you would think like, oh my God, how is that even possible? Whereas somebody who was having like minor surgery, right? That was this compare and contrast example that he gave, they were in so much pain. So it's not about the actual injury or the problem that you would think the pain is emanating from. It's about the interplay between how we're thinking about it and the feelings that happen, right? And all of that together. So
Yeah, it's how you view it, right? When I had chronic neck pain, I was like, oh my God, I can't run anymore. I can't do this. I can't do that. You know what I mean? Like that's you're the way you're viewing it as a negative, and that fear and that worry that it's never going to go away and all that. That's all what it means. Like if you're viewing it as a good thing because you're not going to be in war anymore, that's going to change the perception in your brain, and that's going to make you feel less pain. Like it's so interesting. Yeah, the brain is really in charge of a lot of things here. But it's also in the book he also mentioned about rewiring the brain, right? And how do we rewire it? Well, we have to fix coherence in the body, and we have to fix the breakdown of these, the cellular communication that has been broken down. And we do this, the number one way, that he talked about was circadian and quantum health. And circadian rhythm was the first way to rewire the brain, and that is going to send, we've talked about this on our nervous system podcast health one that we did as well, where you're going to send those safety signals to the body by, getting outside and giving the sunlight into your eyes as the first signal. That's going to bring a lot of safety to the body, but it's also going to bring coherence and proper cellular signaling and proper cellular repair, because you're going to get your cortisol melatonin patterns more back in balance. So all of that, just getting outside, it's that quantum effect, that small stimulus that makes a huge impact on the body, right? That was my first ticket to less pain, was seeing sunrise, earthing, which we'll also talk about, and spending some time outside in morning sunlight. That was the first thing that helped decrease my chronic pain. And that's because you're bringing more coherence to the body and sending the correct messages and signals to the system, what it actually needs.
yep. The
Yeah.
sunlight is the red and infrared, and then the UV light. Those together are just so nourishing for our bodies. And we have to have those inputs. Our bodies are made to run on light. And also because the electrons that you're gathering from your outside and the earth, all of the things, they go together. So you need both of those inputs. And so when you're out in the sunlight, right, the red and infrared helps with the subcellular melatonin production. The UVA light helps with your neurotransmitter and hormone production and balance, right? And then also the UVA light helps with POMC, which is a really important aspect of pain because of the dopamine. So, and the endorphins. which the beta endorphins are actually stronger than morphine, right? So that's what you get from sunlight.
Yeah.
Think
But
about that.
you make that yourself. You produce that yourself. So when you're out in UV light, that's going to stimulate that pro polypeptide, right? That's what we said it was yesterday, a polypeptide. And that's going to help that body make its own endogenous opioids and endorphins. Like you actually can make your own pain reliever, right? That is stronger than morphine in your body, right? Like, how amazing is that? Because not only does it, and it, again, it makes you addicted to the sunlight. It makes you want to go back to that stimulus because it helps support the body in so many ways because it helps, with mood and whatnot too. But yeah, it's a really strong pain reliever, actually. So if you have pain, you've got to be out in sunlight, especially UV light, because it's really going to help us. And we don't think of UV light's going to help support our pain, right? Nobody really thinks of that, but it really does. And I mean, the more light I'm in, the better that situation is for me for a million percent. And more energy, more electrons, and subcellular melatonin is huge, right? That's basically our cellular repair all day long. We got to get those cells repaired so they can communicate with each other, right?
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then it's basically the coherence is about balance, and your body is synchronized. All the processes are working together, and you're in a co-creative state with the nature, with outside of you got to get outside. There's no way around it. Because we have to be right synchronized to the light and dark signals, to the Earth's energy, the electromagnetic resonance, the Schumann's resonance, and all of those things. So our neurotransmitters are going to suffer if we're not outside. The UVA light helps with that, and the dopamine and serotonin, right? Serotonin becomes melatonin. That is essential, and that's a certain time of day. And I understand that for people, it's really hard because of work and stuff. And I would just say you got to figure out how to take a break. You've got to get outside
Yeah.
with sunglasses, glasses, or contacts during that time of day. And you can use the Circadian app. There's a new app on the horizon called My Circadian app for one of our colleagues, Sarah Kleiner. That's what I'm going to be using because I like it better.
I can't wait. I'm so excited for that app.
Super excited. I can't wait to hopefully it's gonna be out any day. She's waiting for the powers that be to give her permission to put it out there. So, but UVA light also helps with your red blood cells. Your red blood cells capture UVA light and it helps with blood flow, moving nutrients to where they're needed in the body. Also, don't forget about melanin. And melanin, we had a guest recently, Dr. Alexis Cowan, and she talked about melanin. And so check that episode out, you guys. Melanin is basically that black pigment in our bodies. It helps with the solar callus, but it's just so much more than that. There's a lot of melanin in the brain, neuromelanin, and in different parts of the body, all over our body, and that's tied to light. So when we're like light deficient, melanin moves around in the body to try to help provide negative electrons to those parts of the body. So the more sun we get, then our body can nourish those melanin stores, and melanin can then help with detox. It helps with pain because it's a selective antioxidant. So
Yeah, anytime you gain energy from your environment, you're going to gather more electrons. But when you're gathering more energy, but then that's also more energy to reduce pain, right? We don't think of it like that. Like that's how it's gonna work, right? Because pain is inflammation. Pain is too much reactive oxygen species. That's what it is. It's not enough energy and not enough voltage, like we said before. So we really got to get all the things online that we can. And I know like some people don't. If you're dealing with chronic pain, you have to probably change your environment. That there is not no going around that. You're gonna have to do something different. You're gonna have to make some other lifestyle choices that are supportive. So you have to find a way to be outside in the morning, especially that morning UVA light, sunrise UVA, and you gotta figure it out. You got to change your work schedule possibly. Like, and not everybody wants to hear that, but there is not another way. Like, unfortunately, our modern living is so dehydrating and sends so much incoherence to the body and changes all our cellular signaling that we have to make sure that we are nourishing our body in the best way that we can, especially when you're dealing with chronic pain, because it's sending you that huge message and signal that something is wrong and that you've got to make some changes, right?
absolutely.
Yeah.
People think, well, can I just go to a supplement or can I just go to a red light device? Well, no, because those would be something that if you're doing all that you possibly can with connecting with nature and you might still need another boost, then you would go to those, but not in place
Yes.
of or without doing the natural practices, because those are, you know, devices are lovely. Like Vanessa and I both have our light devices, okay, but they never are going to equal the power and the perfection of nature ever.
Never, never, no. 'Cause nature's always going to give you everything you need every day, no matter on that cloudy day, that rainy day, that sunny day, it's giving you everything you need. So,
Yeah. The
yeah. So we
devices are
have,
just the devices are just to augment what you're already doing with nature. Yeah.
yes, they're just an extra tool in the toolkit, right? They're an extra tool, but they're not a replacement ever. So I'm so glad you said that because I completely 1,000,000% agree. So we want to make sure too that we are decreasing our time with non-native EMFs and artificial light because both of these are going to decrease your cellular signaling due to dehydration and they're going to, destroy the mitochondria. Both of these things. So now artificial light destroys, you know, DHA in the eye, it destroys vitamin A in the eye, it destroys your dopamine. I mean, it just, destroys your mitochondria. I'm not trying to be doom and gloom here, but this is the reality of that light. It is really super detrimental to our bodies. So I'm talking about artificial blue light, not blue light from the sun, right? So we want to make sure that we are blocking that light best we can, as much as we can, but also non-native EMFs because they are going to dehydrate us on a cellular level. They are going to diminish our exclusion zone water. Dr. Gerald Pollack showed that in his lab that exclusion zone water was diminished by, I think it was 15 to 20% when exposed to Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, and radiation. That's a lot. We're already in dehydrating environments all the time. You want to avoid that as much as we can. And then it messes with your calcium, issue in your body, the calcium influx in your body. So you want to make sure that you are doing everything you can to avoid those frequencies and connecting more because they are going to mess with also your body's ability to communicate with each other, right? That send that correct cellular signaling everywhere. So we're talking Bluetooth, Wi-Fi. I know I felt a decrease in my pain as well when I removed things like wearables, like Apple Watches, and I wasn't an Apple, I had a Garmin because I was a runner, and Bluetooth earbuds out of my ear. And also, I used to sleep with that Garmin. My goodness, that was doing on Bluetooth all night long, and also turning Wi-Fi off at night. That also helped, right? Because also it has a lot to do with, when your body is less hydrated, has less cellular hydration, it's going to activate more pain because it activates also that histamine response in the body, right?
Yep.
And let's see if I can get this word right, but Dr.
Batman
Bob,
Gillage.
thank you. Thank you. His work, that's a great book to read as well. That's your many many cry for
Bodies.
waters, or you're not your many bodies, many cries for water, or you're not thirsty. You're not you're not thirsty. What is the name of it? Do you remember?
Well, there might be more than one, but the main one is Your Body's Many Cries for Water.
Thank you. That's what it's called. Great book to read. But that also explains how, when we're dehydrated, all the inflammatory responses that really happen on our body. But we don't realize that just being around Wi-Fi and Bluetooth and all those non-native EMFs and artificial light are fundamentally dehydrating us on a cellular level. So we really have to be cognizant of these things and doing our best to mitigate them as much as we can. We've mentioned the blue blockers. We've mentioned, Wi-Fi, instead of having Wi-Fi, turning it off at night, getting hardwiring devices, all these things can be great strategies. And we have episodes on that in the past as well. But it's a big piece when it comes to pain, like that people are definitely not considering. And it's huge.
Mhm. Well, the thing I want people to think about, Vanessa, is that pain is a signal. What are the signals your body is getting already that are imbalancing those signals and leading your body to create, signals because there's an incoherent status in your body? Now you need to think about, how am I going to heal my signal environment, or up level my signals that I'm getting by going outside and then mitigating your indoor environment as far as light, and then all of these non-native EMFs and all those things, right? So like I sleep now, my preference is to actually, I turn the breaker off at night. Like I just turn it off.
Ooh, lucky you.
Luckily, everything else that needs to work, like the fridge and all that, it still works. So I turn the breaker off. But unfortunately, it's only half of the room. I'm like, really? Why couldn't they just wire the whole room? But at least
Mm.
the plugins are on the other side of the room that are still on. So I'm on the half that's not electrified. Then I have blackout curtains, and it's just that's what I need. And then I even have my bed elevated so that my brain is higher. But anyways, I'm trying to do everything I can to support my body's coherence, energy flow, right? All the pathways, all the things like that. So one of the
Mhm.
really powerful ways of getting a good signal is by going outside and putting your feet in the grass, dirt, sand, whatever, right? Or touching live plants, and that works as well with your hands or rocks. But we call this earthing. Some people call it grounding. But when you are earthing, you're grounded, and that's what grounding is. So what does this do though? Your body's just like sucking up those negative electrons from the Earth's electromagnetic resonance. This is Schumann's resonance, right? Because there's all these like constant little mini lightning bolts that come down from the atmosphere that create this cool electromagnetic basically belt around the Earth. And your body just taps right into that. There's a woman, oh my gosh, I forget her name, but she was a UCLA professor. I have her book. I can't remember her name of the book, but anyways, we need to do an episode on this, Vanessa, because she did an experiment where she put college students who volunteered in like a vault that blocked all signals from the earth and anything for like see how long they could last. So they were in this cement or whatever the material was, like a vault, and there was no signals coming in from anything. In 2 days, I think it was by the end of 2 days, they started to get almost not psychotic, but they started to go crazy. They started to get like wonky, because we can't survive without being connected to the Earth's resonance, Schumann resonance. And so think about it. That's how wired we are. That's how we're built, is to be able to use these frequencies for our health. And so the earthing, basically when you come in contact that with these surfaces, your hands and feet are absorbing negative electrons because they have the most receptors for that. And it helps balance your nervous system. You go into more of a parasympathetic state, so it calms down that sympathetic activation. It's kind of like an antioxidant because those electrons go exactly where they're needed, and your body has the energy it needs to do what it needs to do. And it helps with the heart rate variability because now you're in coherence because you're kind of synchronized with that resonance, that energy of the earth. The zeta potential when you're earthing helps your red blood cells flow better, it improves circulation and cellular signaling because you have more energy. So it's like that's pretty quantum and that's pretty amazing, right? All you have to do is go stand outside barefoot. Now, how many people are germaphobes or they're so afraid of the natural environment? And they're really missing out. It's like you got to get over your fear of nature, your fear that it's going to harm you, your fear of light, and learn how to use it judiciously and, work up to more sun exposure, for example, at the right times of day in the morning. And then go out and put your feet in the dirt and then trust your body that it's going to be stronger and you're not going to die of some sort of like if a bug touches you.
1,000,000%. And I don't think most people are thinking about, oh, I have pain, let me go earth. Like people don't think that. Like it's not a common thing that we think of, but like I'm like, that can be a huge benefit to pain. And it was another thing that I would always notice when my pain was really heightened. Um, and my brother has the same experience as well. Go outside and earthing, and I would get a reduction of pain, when I was dealing with that. And it would take some time. I'm not going to lie. It would probably take a good 30 to 40 minutes before you actually feel the difference. So I want people to realize that this is not you are going to get more like, you will get instantaneous benefits in the body that you may not necessarily feel right away, but to reduce pain, you probably need a good 30 to 40 minutes, I would say. And another great book to read if you haven't read it is Earthing by Clint Ober. He's helped all kinds of people. I mean, that's a phenomenal book to read if you have any skepticism about earthing and what its power is. Just read that book and you will read the countless stories and stories and stories and stories of amazing things that happened when people earth. I do want to say, if you are more dehydrated on a cellular level, your body is going to have a harder time picking up those frequencies from Earth as well. So this is why, again, like if you're living in that kind of indoor lifestyle all the time and you're really dehydrated, you're gonna need more time to reap the benefits because this will help that cellular hydration happen, when you're outside earthing, but you got to make sure that you're giving it enough time to see the benefits of it, especially if you're living a more indoor lifestyle. It's just what I wanted to mention. But yeah, earthing I think is an amazing tool that we have at our fingertips and our feet all the time, right?
It must be if we have a lack of exclusion zone water, then we're not able to take advantage of those frequencies, right? We're not able, is that what it is? Like,
Yes.
we can't absorb
Yes.
the electrons. Yeah, that's definitely catch 22. But you got to just do all, like a little bit of all the things. Your body is going to heal itself. We're self-healing organisms, so it's going to
Mhm.
balance out. It needs to be in homeostasis. So just do a little bit of all the things, and you'll be surprised how quickly, if you mitigate the indoor non-native EMFs and so forth. And then when you go out, you can start earthing, do it longer to make up for that. But then you'll see that you're going to get more benefits sooner if you do a combination of these things that are manageable.
Yeah, you'll come back to more balance. And all the more sunlight you get too, the more infrared you get, the more you're going to expand that exclusion zone water also. So that's also important. And like everything is just so connected in the body. Like we tend to like allopathic medicine, which we obviously don't condone, tends to think of the systems as like, closed systems, right? That they're not talking or communicating to each other. But we are open systems, many open systems. We're connected. All the systems in our body are connected. Then all of us are connected. We're connected to the earth and we're all connected to each other, right? And to every single person on this planet and in this universe, right? Or beyond, right? We're all connected. And everything that we do actually has a ripple effect and a quantum connection at that level, I believe, right? But we have to understand that in our body, since everything is connected, we have this like fascia that runs through our body, right? And that is where our most of our exclusion zone water is, and that's where we're doing all of this kind of quantum communication, right? That's how that signaling is happening through the fascia, through it's like that network in our body, right? It's like a almost like a spider web, think of it, right? That's connecting all your cells and your organs, right? And that exclusion zone water is running all through that. And that's, like I said, where all that cellular signaling is happening. So if we have any kind of like scar tissue stuff, stuck stagnant energy in the fascia, right? And it could be also trauma that's kind of stored there as well, right? This is going to create kind of blockages in our cellular communication, right? That there's, like I said, a scar or some sort of trauma that's been stored in the body. It's like a block in that communication. And then you're losing coherence because you have these blockages, right? So we want to also support that. Um, of course, everything we said already with sunlight and earthing and, mitigating all those negative frequencies that we not want to be involved with, but also other things like movement, yoga, walking, myofascial release, chiropractic, any kind of physical therapy, like lymphatic drainage, dry brushing, all these things can also help with that as well, because you want to move that energy that might be stuck or blocked.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Movement is really, really important
Yeah.
because I think in our modern culture, like we're sitting in our jobs, not everyone, but indoor office workers, we're sitting a lot. We're sitting all night. It's just too much stagnation. So that just compounds everything, and that's really going to increase your pain level. And I think for some people who have like mobility stuff, they don't want to move because it hurts. But then the less you move, the
Hmm.
more you're contributing to that stagnation and not helping your body's pathways to open up, and then the energy to communication in your fascia to become more fluid, or have more movement there. And it's like it's really bad. So any movement you can do is good, any movement. So fascia and then the exclusion zone water, like Vanessa said, are where we store trauma. And so trauma being the emotional stuck energy in the body of an overwhelming experience, where there's either a physical assault, or there could be a physical, including like a car wreck, right? So it's not necessarily a relational component, but I want to just emphasize in this podcast, I know it's maybe a bit of a reach for some people, but I've experienced attachment trauma, and like many clients over the years I've worked with, like all relationship struggles usually stem from some sort of attachment trauma, from minor to more severe, right? So basically, emotional pain, right,
Hmm.
is our body doesn't know the difference between emotional pain and what we would call like, oh, I got a cut on my finger. Like emotional pain feels as if it were just like physical pain, because it is. They're not really different. Because there's so many people who are so afraid of their emotions. Like, I don't want to feel that. Like, I can't start feeling that. I'll cry. I won't stop crying. Whatever. I've heard this so many times. But I just want to tell you how powerful that energy of the emotions is that's planted itself, that's sort of stuck, if you will, unfortunately, in our tissues, in our exclusion zone water. So it's really, really important to remember that these practices we're offering you can help with those as well,
Hmm.
because it's all connected in your body. So I know when people think of pain, they mostly think of physical pain. There's more emotional pain really that people are suffering, and then it has a physical component to it. So when people have literally died of heartbreak,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
they've been heartbroken, they're so bereft and forlorn, going to get super depressed, and then they die because guess what, their body has actually lost all of its coherence. They can't tolerate that level of emotional pain. It is a physical component to it. That's what I'm talking about. So everything we're talking about, and then including homeopathy, which is really powerful for emotional struggles as well as physical, super helpful for the trauma. And I think of trauma as mostly a combination of the physical and emotional. Like most people don't think of, oh, it's just a physical trauma. Physical trauma has emotional components, right? Even if it's just like a car wreck. Well, then we have that coupled thing we talked about at the beginning of the show. I'm afraid to get in the car because of what happened. I think about it, I have nightmares about it, right? That's the cognitive and emotional component that gets sort of cemented in with the physical experience. Even though you could have healed already physically, guess what lingers? It's the cognitive and the emotional. So this helps with all of that, you guys.
I can give an example of that. So I was attacked by a dog, right? So it was a couple of years ago. And all that physical injury is gone. I don't have any physical injury from that attack anymore. It's gone. There's no pain there. But there is still for me, even though I've worked on it and I've done some things on it, when I see that breed of dog, I still feel it. I still feel that weakness in my body, like my legs go weak a little bit.
Mm.
And in fact, just a couple of weeks ago, I was walking my dog, Teddy, and a big dog, quite big dog, came up to us and was barking and was not leashed, right? That will still activate that in me because
Oh,
it's reactivating that trauma response that it's just, that's a tough thing to just for your body, but it's not fully letting go yet of that yet because it just reactivates all that. And my nervous system got so heightened, I had to like, everything was fine. And the family came over and took their dog away after a couple minutes though. Like there was that felt like forever, where that dog was just like there. But of course, then I had to like take some time to like just recalibrate my own nervous system and calm down a little bit because it is kind of scary for me now because of that of what happened to me. So that's an example of that, right? You're going to have that still, like it reactivates that same situation in my body, like my body's remembering, like your body holds that memory, that our exclusion zone water is holding that memory. So it's like I just kind of was right back in that situation again. That's how my body just felt like I was there again. So
but
that's
I
an
would say
example.
there's a couple layers. Like there's a couple layers, Vanessa. What I'm hearing my brain say is like, well, wait a minute. You're supposed to have that reaction. Like that's
Hmm.
normal. Even if you never had been injured by a dog, you're supposed to have somewhat of a reaction of like, uh-oh, this is not safe. What could happen here? That's a normal sympathetic response. But you have
Hmm.
another layer of like, ooh, now this is extra dangerous. And I remember
Yes.
my body remembers I was hurt by this same like similar, scenario here. And so now you have multiple layers stacked up, and that makes a bigger response for you overall.
Yeah, 1,000,000%. Because honestly, before that, I was never afraid of dogs. So I would have a dog would have came over, I probably would have had no fear response of
Oh,
that.
I would. Oh, well, okay.
Yeah.
I see. So that's why you're saying you know that your response is mostly due to the trauma and not because there's a big dog barking right in front of you. Okay, got it.
Yes, 1,000,000%. I would not have had that level of reaction. No, that's new
That's
ever
not
since.
normal. Most people would be like, ah,
I mean,
it,
a little bit. I mean, a little bit nervous, but
okay,
not to the level that this activates. It's
got
different.
it.
Yeah.
Okay, got it.
And yeah, and then also to piggyback on that is like to me, I really think you cannot separate the physical and the emotional and the mental. I think they are all so interwoven so much. Like we said before, when you have any kind of pain, then you're gonna worry about how it's gonna affect your life, and then you might go into like more depressive states if the pain continues. Like everything is all connected. Um, so yeah, we cannot separate that, and that's another reason why I love homeopathy so much as a modality is because it's hitting all those layers, the physical, the mental, and emotional, right? So, and same thing with circadian biology, it's hitting all those layers too, because everything is connected in the body. So I think that's pretty cool.
Hmm. So
Yeah.
what are the other aspects of pain? I don't want to call it pain management. We need a better word for it. So like pain, uh, how do we want to say this?
Relief.
Pain relief, right? Getting rid of your pain basically is you
Yeah.
have to get good quality sleep. It's so interesting how many people I work with are like, no, I sleep fine. And I'm like,
Mm.
well, you have a lot of anxiety and other issues going on and you're tired. So I'm thinking like maybe you don't sleep as well as you think you do. Because even if you just go to sleep and you don't wake up, doesn't mean you're getting into deep states of sleep, doesn't mean you're getting to bed early enough and you're getting all that self-cleaning happening in the first half of the night. So quality sleep is like, I would say a must, right? So you got to have all the pieces in place. You need to actually go to bed when you're starting to yawn, which is probably several hours before people want to go to bed, right? So at 8 or 9. And in the winter, maybe earlier. So it's just so uncool to go to bed that early. Well, that's the only time I have is, to relax and watch my shows and stuff. Okay, well, but it's up to you. You get to choose. Like this is part of the coaching part of it. It's like, what do you want? Do you want to spend the time watching your shows because you're so exhausted and that's the only way you can de-stress? But then you're going to feel like crap in the morning. You have to get up and have sugar and coffee. Like, come on. So let's get this straightened out. We have to have our priorities and our motivation has to be like what you want the outcome to be. So go to bed earlier. Don't eat too close to bedtime. Don't eat a lot of sugar at night, preferably low, not very many carbs. And then you want to make sure your room is dark enough, like no blue or green light anywhere. But so blackout curtains if necessary, wear your eye mask, get your room cool enough, and then you want to basically turn off all the tech. Don't bring tech into your room, right? I know it's really hard. I still slip up sometimes if I need to get stuff done. So don't do that though. And then go to bed early so you can self-clean because that happens in the first half of the night. So
Yeah. So important. That is the first half of the night. We need that deeper sleep and we need more sleep in winter, right? Like you alluded to before, right? Because we need to do some more repairing and more cleaning and we're turning on more autophagy and apoptosis. And I sleep with a sleep mask. I use earplugs. I do all the things. Like as much as we have blackout curtains and a sleep mask. I'm like, I want to be as dark as I can because I don't want anything suppressing my melatonin because I want to get as much repair as I can because yeah, I want to reverse age, instead of, and that's my whole plan. So, yeah. And then I also think one of the most insightful things I learned in Dr. Hussey's book was for me, when I dealt with the chronic pain at its worst, it was chronic pain and chronic insomnia. And the pain was always worse at night. And my nervous system was so upregulated that I couldn't sleep. And I went through probably at least 6 months or more of just crap sleep. And that just destroyed my emotions as well. I was really depressed and it was just a really dark time, right? So when I repaired my circadian biology, one of the things that happened is I started sleeping better, I had less pain, and then I started dreaming eventually. Like, and I knew that meant I was getting into like deeper sleep, which is great, right? Um, and that's REM sleep, right? That rapid eye movement that happens in sleep. And one of the things that came out of that when reading that book, that, his book, he had mentioned how, in EMDR, they use the rapid eye movement to help heal trauma. And when you're sleeping and you're in deep sleep, you are actually getting that rapid eye movement as well, which would then essentially help heal and support trauma that's, in the body and move trauma out of the body. And that we're actually supposed to just do that naturally every night when we're in deep sleep. But a lot of people are not getting in that deep sleep, each night. So, and they're not really like doing that repair that's supposed to happen. So I don't know. I think that's really an interesting insight that I got from the book, and it all makes sense and correlates to everything that happened to me. So that's why I resonated with it so deeply.
mhm. Yeah,
Yeah.
and just the short and sweet of sleep is that the less quality sleep you get and the less sleep, you're going to be more inflamed and you're going to have more pain, period.
Yep. So 100%
Get
get your
around
sleep
that.
on, people. 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So of course, we want this is perfect because we're covering food now. Think of all the stuff we've talked about. Food is not at the top of the list. So certainly you don't
Mhm.
things that are going to inflame you like vegetable oils, corn, canola, cottonseed, sunflower, safflower. I don't eat avocado either.
Mm-mm.
Want to eat healthy animal fats and then maybe a little super high quality olive oil, butter and so forth, tallow, ghee, lard are the best. And if you like chicken fat, you can do that, but make sure it's pastured. So, but you want to also really make sure you're eating locally and seasonally so that the food you're eating, the bulk of the food you're eating has the light code of your local environment and then what's happening in that time of year. So if you're eating mangoes in New York in the winter, that's going to confuse your mitochondria. It actually reads the electron barcode on the food and it's going to go, wait, what? This isn't matching what I'm picking up from the environment. And then it gets confused. That's going to interfere with your all the things the mitochondria are doing. And it's not going to be good because it can create inflammation and excess reactive oxygen species. So you don't want to do that.
No, we don't want to have extra inflammation due to what we're eating. And I love that you picked up on that. That food was like the last one on the list almost, right? Like all this other stuff that we mentioned before this, the sunlight, the earthing, working on your trauma, getting quality sleep. It's so much more. The movement. This is so much more important than the food. But you don't want to be eating crap either, though. Like, let's be honest. So if you are in chronic pain and then you're eating, a super inflammatory diet full of processed and packaged foods, well, we want to fix that. At least move to all real foods. Okay. Of course, better if you can be local and seasonal, but at least take that step and be like, I'm not going to eat anything that comes in a package or processed, right? Because that is just, I don't even consider it food anymore, really. Like that's how I don't view it as food at all in any way. And the levels of deuterium in that's a whole nother conversation, but there's just so much garbage in that we don't want to be putting into our body. So if you're dealing with chronic pain, you have to make that choice. That's a huge thing you must do. And then I would say like getting a good quality red light therapy panel. I have a free product guide linked here below that you can check out too. And we have discount codes linked also. But getting a good quality red light therapy device, especially through winter time when, you cannot get as much infrared on your body. Infrared light is kind of cool that it, does penetrate 10 to 30 centimeters deep through clothing, actually. Not if you're wearing like many winter layers, right? But it's going to penetrate through some clothing. And you can even get it in shade. Like I'm sitting outside right now doing this podcast and I'm getting infrared because it's bouncing off the greenery. It's hitting back at me. So it's supporting my body. So I'm getting red light therapy. But in the wintertime, if you live in a really northern latitude where it's cold, I do think red light therapy can be helpful. And if you're dealing with something that's causing a lot of chronic pain, it's targeted, it's systemic, has systemic effects, right? It's going to help you have better electron flow, better mitochondria health, increase that subcellular melatonin. That's why red light therapy works on so many things because it improves the mitochondria and exclusion zone water. You have more electrons and you have more subcellular melatonin. That's why. So that could be another tool in the toolbox to use. Again, it's one of the last ones we mentioned because doing all the other things are way better priority for you.
What do you think about cold exposure, cold thermogenesis? We don't have that on the list, but I think we should at
Oh,
least mention it.
we
That
can.
would be
Yeah.
something to consider. It definitely helps me in many ways with inflammation. So, but you really need to be careful, especially menstruating women. You don't want to
Mhm.
overdo it. And the other thing is if you have like if you've had a lot of fatigue over your life, you've had a lot of like digestive issues, if you've had a lot of trauma, you need to be very careful with not overdoing it on the cold exposure. Like literally 3 to 5 minutes at 50 to 70 degrees several times a week is plenty. Not like I did it all wrong.
Me
Jumping
too.
jumping in the Pacific Ocean for like 55 minutes at 50 degrees, and then I had my hands.
55 minutes you did?
I was doing a long time, yeah. It was
Wow.
really fun though. We were out there with the otters and I couldn't help it. And we were all a group of women and we were yakking and I was like forgetting time. And I was doing,
Yeah, I could. Yeah,
but then
I
when I
could.
got back to shore, my hands and feet were too numb to drive and I had to wait and it was painful. So then I started wearing gloves and booties, but still I met with Karen. She's like, no, no, no. You need to tone that down to 5 minutes. I'm like, oh, okay. So you have to be so careful. And it literally could just be you taking a cold shower at the end of your shower, turn off the hot. If you can tolerate it, I do better on my back. Some people like on their front side. You can even just put your wrists in cold water. You can do face dunks. I find that really hard, to be honest. I started that way and I'm like, who can do this? This is awful. But it
Mhm.
really does help with pain. So I just want to throw that out there.
No, I think that's a excellent one to add in. Absolutely. And if you want to stack it, you'd want to do cold and then red because cold is going to shrink the respiratory proteins, right? So they're going closer together. Meaning in the mitochondria, you have these respiratory proteins. There's 5 of them, right? When the electrons have to tunnel to each one. So it'll shrink those spaces in the respiratory proteins. And then so the electrons will tunnel better. So if you do that, you shrink those spaces, then you get in front of the red light therapy panel, then you're going to get that subcellular melatonin and electron flow working a little better too. So it's a nice stack together. So if you're dealing with chronic pain, cold, and then red light could be good. And yeah, just as women, go slow, slow, slow. So I find cold therapy that does help with pain for me, but it also is very strong stimulus to my hormones. So I have to be very gentle with it. It just, for some reason, my hormones and colds can make a very big impact on it. And sometimes if you have a tendency to be an overdoer, then it could be too much, right? Like, and I've done that too. First time I did
Or
cold
it's not
therapy,
always better. With
yeah,
quantum,
more is not better. Less is better, actually. Actually, I say less is better.
well,
Um,
getting a lot of good red light is, outside is good if, as long as you're doing it safely.
yeah.
I could probably be out there all day and do wonders for me because I have a good solar callus, a good tan worked up,
Yes.
but I have stuff to do and I can't be outside all day and it's, there's other factors involved. But I wish I could be, right? And that's something that I don't think we can overdo. But there all these other things, like you got to be careful with the cold thermogenesis and whatnot.
I think cold is the number one thing to be careful with, especially as a woman.
Yeah.
And I do think though that like earthing really can't be overdone.
No.
I think earthing just as much as you want, and sunlight, most people can handle plenty of sunlight. But if you have any issues with sun, then you have to, especially UVB, then you got to go slow. But as it's coming into the more fall season, get as much as you can, right? Because you're not gonna it's not the red light that's going to ever be an issue, right? It's more the UV that some people can't tolerate, that people have struggle with. So I also would recommend homeopathy if you're struggling with chronic pain. That was another thing for me. Even though on my own pain journey, when I was struggling with chronic pain, I had a lot of reduction in chronic pain, and things were a lot better for me. And I was sleeping better, and a lot of things were better. But there were still some that remain remnants of pain that were challenging for me, and homeopathy has helped greatly. But again, there is no pain remedy. There isn't like, oh, you can take this. There are, indications for certain remedies in certain situations for pain, but there is no pain remedy, especially if it's chronic. So we really need to do a full intake and get to know you and understand the root cause of your pain. Is it from emotional, is it hormonal? Is it trauma related? All these things, all these factors, like what is the cause and the impetus? And a homeopathic session can help. Heather and I can both do that with you, take a thorough intake and really understand what is the cause. Is it emotional pain that it's fear-based, or is it, something that's causing that causing this pain to be chronic? So we can help you out and figure that out.
Mhm. Yeah. So
Yeah.
tell us about your new offerings, Vanessa.
Oh, I just wanted to share. I just created a new winter webinar, which is pretty cool. So it's how to thrive in winter. So it is a 3-hour webinar and a 50-page ebook that you'll get to teach you how to thrive in winter. And I think it's really impactful because I think most people think, oh, summer is the time to heal because I get all this strong UVB light. And that is true. It is great. But honestly, I think winter and the darkness, honoring darkness in winter, can be an amazing healing time if we just experience a true winter and we really, leverage what winter has to offer. So I would love people to come out of winter or emerge out of winter feeling even better than they did prior. So you can take this webinar if you'd like. It's a 3-hour webinar and it is chock full of good information. It's lifetime access. You have it forever. Watch it every winter so you prepare for winter and you know how to do it. And I also go over like the food aspect, which can be like challenging in winter, and all the things, and all about light and dark and all the things to support you with your health. So yeah. And Heather and I are both offering, coaching as well if you'd like. And I have personalized healthcare plans. So there are a lot of avenues we can support you on your health if you're dealing with chronic pain or if you're just having any chronic symptoms, you need support.
Yeah, I love to focus on helping clients with all of the quantum things we just talked about, and especially doing deeper dives on what's going on with the emotional, the cognitive, right? And then how is the energy of your relationships affecting your health? So that's what I specialize in, all of those things. So I love to use homeopathy for that, as well as just the interpersonal in attachment-based work is beautiful because there's a lot of quantum stuff happening with that whole process, right? Of how you're being witnessed, how your relationship with yourself is affecting your health, how are you noticing your body's messages to you about what you need and what you don't want, and how much are you listening to your soul? Like, I love to tap into those longings about, are you experiencing what you want to experience in your life? And if not, let's like up level your voltage so that you can start to take action and do the things that are going to get you what you want and have a richer experience in life. So reach out to one of us and
Mhm.
book with us and buy Vanessa's course, and you guys will be well on your way to having a much better experience of winter and your life overall. So thanks for tuning in, you guys.